Hello, I'm DJ Morphling and I'm a representative of MIW, and I would like to tell you something today about the MIW filter as an OEM replacement filter. MIW or Meiwa is a brand that's been on the market for 40 years. It's a Japanese brand originally, and we're now helping to bring this back to the market as a higher end OEM alternative filter. And I would like to tell you today a little bit about how to see the difference between different types of filter that on the outside all look the same, but on the inside they may have some technical differences. I've got three filters here that we picked up. So this one is high flow. High flow is also we would consider to be a higher end quality OEM replacement or OEM alternative filter. This is the Meiwa filter, MIW filter. It's the same model as the high flow, and we also have a same model lower end filter made in China. It's not the Chinese product, it's bad. It's just that some of the filters that are 50% less expensive have some technical differences, and we'd like to show you what they are. All the three filters here have a very similar canister. There's nothing significantly different between the three, and this isn't an area where they would necessarily fail. When you get into the filter, there are several parts. They have a spring, and the spring holds the filter down in position on the base and on the non-return valve. So this spring is the first important part. The high flow spring it's strong, it's durable, and it's certainly going to do its job. It's a flat spring in that case, and here you see in this filter the Meiwa filter uses helicoil spring. It's also a very strong spring. It has a advantage of a helicoil is possibly it has a slightly bigger area of functionality. So if there's some slight difference in the constructional height of the filter, the helicoil has a little bit more area where it can work. But I don't think that's really a significant point. What you do see in the much less expensive filter is the construction of the material. It starts to get very thin and flimsy. So this spring really can't put much pressure onto the top of the filter because it flexes very easily, too easily. Then when we look at the filter body itself, we have the pleats of the paper. You can't see really what's inside the paper. You can only see how the construction of the paper is. So you see the pleats of the paper, the top and the bottom. This is a pressure release valve on the top. All the filters have the same construction: pleats, top, bottom, pressure release valve. What you really see here is when you look at the height of the filter paper, on these two filters, they're very similar. On this filter, there's a significant less paper involved. That means that it could filter less material before it becomes blocked, or it could let less flow go through the filter. Then the pressure release valve. If the filter paper gets blocked as a last resort before the engine gets starved of oil, oil's circulating around here, going through the filter paper. As a last emergency, when this is blocked, to allow oil to still flow, this valve would be depressed, and dirty oil, or say non-filtered oil, would flow around the engine, which is better than no oil at all. These two filters have quite strong pressure release valves. This filter has really a very weak pressure release valve, and so there's less filter paper which would be blocked quite soon, and the pressure release valve is quite weak, so it would more easily let the unfiltered oil go around the engine, which in our opinion is not such a good thing. Then on the base of each filter there's a non-return valve. The non-return valve covers up these holes, and the idea is when the canister is full of oil and you switch off the engine on the motorcycle, if the canister is horizontal position, then it can happen that the oil drains back into the engine. when you start the motorcycle the next time, before the oil is filtered and starts going around the engine, it has to fill up the canister first, and that takes a little bit of time. And during the time that it's filling up the canister, for those few seconds, you don't have oil flowing around the motorcycle. So it's not a good idea to have that, not to have this construction. The high flow filter has a good constructed non-return valve. It's a molded, injection molded one. The MIW filter has the same thing, injection molded. This one is supposed to match the color of our box. It's not critical, it's the similar material, just a different color. But when you get to the very cheaper alternative, it's a piece of flat rubber. This isn't going to stop the oil going back into the engine. It's there, it looks like it's doing the job, but it's not really doing the job, and oil could very easily go around it. The last thing you see on these filters, the number of holes. We have 8 holes here. We have also on the MIW 8 holes, and then when you get to this last one, I have 6 holes. So less oil could be flowing. So you have restrictions in the base of the filter. You have a larger restriction in the paper construction, and you have a weak spring. As it's a critical part of the engine, and it's not the really expensive part that you need to change, it's really better to go for OEM or an OEM alternative. High flow is an OEM alternative, and MIW, with its 40 years experience, coming from Japan originally, is also an OEM alternative.